Redditors who have mistakenly walked in on people having sex. What's your story? My little sister's 16th birthday. I was definitely too old to enjoy myself. We had an olive grove down the back of our house. Later on in the night, I walked down there into a crowd that had formed. The group was standing around watching two kids doing it. For the first time. It still haunts my dreams. Edit. Spelling. Not really the answer you're looking for, but when my sister died in a car accident, I rushed to her room to destroy her 6 tapes I overheard her talk about to her boyfriend before the parents found them. I had a hotel room booked on a trip to Queensland, Australia, and they gave me the key to a room that was apparently already inhabited. Walked into a lovely couple enjoying some doggy style action. Immediately closed the door. They hadn't heard me, thankfully, and went back to explain the mistake to front desk. They were mortified and moved me to a penthouse room with amazing views of the waterfront along with some free chocolates and dinner. I work security on my campus. There were a few times walking in on couples making out or something. But one time I walked into the art building to close it up. I normally didn't check the basement because there wasn't ever really anyone down there. It's the play costume area. This night there was a play earlier, so I decided to check it. I walked through and there was this one door closed, but it had a small glass window. I saw one girl with her legs spread and another girl with her face in between them eating her out pretty voraciously. I knocked on the door and kinda ran and cleared the rest of the building, then went and checked to make sure they had left. I go to a small school, so I knew who the girls were. The eater is married now to a guy. I never really told anybody about it. I was a pizza delivery boy fresh out of high school, and the place I worked for had a 25-minute delivery guarantee happening at the time. Between placing the order and me arriving to their house, I'd arrived within 10 minutes as the address was close by. They decided that'd be a good time to get down to business. I arrived, walked up to their open front door and knocked. In full view of the front door, they were going at it like rabbits. The woman, hearing me knock, hastily covered herself, exclaiming "OMG, OMG," while the man just casually walked to the door completely naked and erect with his cash. He even stood there waiting while I counted out his change. It was probably the most awkward thing I've ever encountered. Edit. Spelling and grammar. Edit 2. No tip. I did pest control while in college, and for the apartments I sprayed I had a master key. The deal was that after knocking for a minute, if no one came to the door, then I went in and announced my presence just in case. Then I would spray, leave a card and lock back up. So I knock, no answer. I opened the door. From the doorway I could see clear through into the bedroom, and I could see the edge of the bed sticking out. What I saw were 2 giant trunks of legs hanging off the edge of the bed, bouncing, with a mostly naked woman riding on top. The woman screamed. I immediately slammed the door and took off to the next apartment. Never saw them again, thankfully. Side story. A month later in a neighboring apartment, I came across a guy beating on the door. He looked frustrated and he claimed his girlfriend lived there but wasn't answering the door. I told him I couldn't let him in, but I'd let him know if I heard the shower running or something while I was in there. I figured she just couldn't hear him. So I opened the door, again able to see clear through to the bedroom, and I can see the girl and a different guy curled up on the bed together. They were clothed, but she clearly got up panicked. I told her the first guy was outside, like she didn't already know. They got into a screaming match while I sprayed the apartment. I just kind of shot a gym face at the guy on the bed and got the hell out of there. Was at a party. Door to the living room area was closed for some reason. Weird. Open door. Half of my friends at the party are engaging in an orgy. Closed door. We were 12 and walking in a group of 5 on the beach under the moonlight. One of us sees what we think is a seal lying very quietly on the sand, waiting until our group passed by. It was not a seal. When I started my first job as a teenager, I would always make sure to tell my parents when I got home so they knew I had gotten home safe. I guess they forgot that was the routine. Well, sure enough, walked into their bedroom with them in the middle of a passionate session. Good thing it was dark and I didn't really see anything. I just turned around, walked out, and never said anything ever again until now. P.S. I also found a 6 tape of my sister, but that's a different story. I think I might have issues cause of all this, but what can you do? Look, I don't have a story. I have an ability. I've walked in on my sister with almost every partner she had, making bold eye contact with every man. I've walked in on my friends doing it at a high school party, their house after they invited me over, dropping off homework. I've walked in on my roommates doing it on the couch or in their room but super quiet. I've walked in multiple times on my parents enough that I actively make so much noise whenever I'm visiting and staying over. I've walked in on strangers doing it in a heavily forested park. When I was 8 riding past on my bike. Great sight to see. I've walked in on my grandparents once. Most terrifying ordeal. What I do is a talent, an art. It's happened too many times for it to be a coincidence for me. I've become desensitized from it. I can walk in on my roommate ducking in the living room and make a beeline for the kitchen for some cold pizza. I don't care. Call it a superpower or a curse, but I live with it every day. And I never know which day is when I see some unexpected Balzac. Edit. Why do you all assume I don't knock? I do knock. Hell, I was even calling out to my roommates when I found them on my goddamn couch. But people are either too busy getting freaky to hear me or God is just punishing me for last life. I threw a house party and put a sign on my bedroom saying off limits. A friend told me he heard someone in my room, so I entered and saw the prom queen riding a buddy of mine. I quickly exited the room. Later that night he came up to me and said, "I'm sorry about having sex in your bed, but at least you got to see Alexa naked. We cool?" And we shook hands and never spoke of it again. Let me set the scene. The 19th of August 2017. I had just flown from a week in Cancun back to Australia. 24 hours later my housemates were having their engagement party in our backyard. I escaped the chaos ensuing outside and walked into our other housemate's room to see what he was up to. I'd be lying if I said I didn't walk in on a 6-foot white man absolutely smashing a slight Asian male in upside down missionary position. I casually shut the door and returned to the chaos outside where they proceeded to embrace me 5 minutes later. What a time to be alive. I was young and naive and my older brother was quietly having sex with his girlfriend at our parents' house. I went to call them for dinner and opened the door. Neither of our rooms had locks. Thankfully they were under the covers and I immediately left. But my brother followed and slapped me round the head. My house was the place everyone hung out when we were like 18-20. Walked out of my room to grab a box of tissues to clean up after myself and my GF and walked into my friend and my GF's friend on the lounge. Laughed, grabbed the tissues, went back to bed. I walked in on my roommate and his girlfriend in college. I think one of my classes was cancelled because it was the week before finals. As I opened the door they both yelled "Dan no." And I just saw my roommate's ass trying to shield himself and his girlfriend. I let out an insanely over the top laugh then left. About 5 minutes later he walked into our friend's dorm that I went to hang out in and he said we only had to make it one more week without this happening. Good times. Walked in on my buddy's girlfriend walking back to her room from the bathroom naked while he was putting pants on. He told me to come in because he thought she was getting dressed in the restroom, but she had left some clothes I guess. I just remember my thought process being that's a butt. Boy is it red. Oh my god, that's Linda's butt. After they shut the door and got dressed, she came out and teased me, saying my face was more red than her butt. I've never been more embarrassed in my life. Edit. Bad grammar. Also, not her real name. She heard the door when I opened it and ran into their bedroom. The damage was done, and instead of hiding, she joked about it to make it less awkward. Did it all the time as a college security guard. Cars, dorm lounges, classrooms left open for study late at night. Hell, even sidewalks. Always worried the cars were rapes in progress. Most of the rest would just move along. We were near a red light district, so a few were likely prostitutes. Too old for college. A couple that stand out was a guy eating a girl in a car, and when I spoke to him he said they weren't doing anything and his face had pubes all over it. Another. When we hit the lights, the man jumped over the back seat into the front and managed to spunk as he was mid-air. Would never have believed it. This was the 80s. So crushed velvet was still fairly common in car upholstery. That's gonna be hard to get out. The worst week for it was a junior high Bible camp. They'd rented a dorm for a week in the summer. Kids everywhere having sex. Walked in on 2 in the classroom building we kept open for late night study. Boy grabbed his clothes and ran. Girl, probably about 14, left naked alone in the room. She got a lecture about the value of picking a guy who won't run out on her, leaving her vulnerable to some unknown man walking in on her. G's just left her behind to fend for herself. A couple broke into our bell tower. People wanted to go up there to have sex. I had a couple of students offer to bribe me to let them in. I'd been up there if you don't know. Tall bell tower will likely have bird crap all over the place. It reeks. It's not likely to keep her in the mood. Freshman year of college, everyone on our floor was friendly, and we had an open door policy, so we would often walk into each other's rooms to do things like ask if people wanted to go to the dining hall together or get a group together to play soccer. So, one day, one of my friends was under the weather with a cold. I thought on my way out the door to the dining hall I'd stop in his room and ask if he wanted me to bring him back some chicken soup. Little did I know his girlfriend had driven 4 hours to come surprise visit him because he was sick. I barge into his room as I always did, and the first thing I see is this girl on top of him, topless. So I did the only sensible thing. I asked if she wanted chicken soup too. 4 years later we're all still friends. Not as close as we were freshman year, but that's what happens over time. I was walking through the Hyde Park, Sydney. They were banging out in the open. I kept walking. Thought we were going to bundle in on my mates asleep. 2 of us wrapped in towels thinking how funny it will be. We kick in the door and burst in. Turns out him and his boy were full on naked, noshing away. Everything on show. We turn to run, but my mate gets out the door first and closes it behind him. I slam into the door face first. Towel slips over my eyes and I can't get out. I was scrambling at that door for a good 30 seconds whilst the couple shout abuse at me. 30 seconds can be a long time. I found a bag of 6 toys when looking for my Game Boy my mum confiscated. I remember reaching into the bag and pulling out one of the biggest dildos I have seen to this day. Still haunts my dreams. Walked in on my female flatmate having a 2-guy threesome, and not like the 3-ways you seen in porn where one's at the mouth the other is behind. It was like a sandwich. There was a dude on his back, my flatmate laying on top of him, and then the last guy was kinda lurched over the whole affair with his feet on the ground but his torso on her back. We never discussed it, but it was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen happen and actually put me off starting a relationship with her when the opportunity came up. So it's Halloween and I'm 18 or 19 partying with my friends. A few friends were visiting from a different city and had a hotel room that we all ended up going back to. It was 4 girls and one of the girls' boyfriend. I had already thrown up outside of the hotel in the bushes, but I knew I'd have to do it again. We get all settled and some of the other girls are playing a card game whilst I had the spins. I remember jumping up and running to the bathroom. I opened the door and my friend's roommate was having sex with her boyfriend in the shower. I shut the door fast and say sorry, but I still had to vomit, so I was like, guys, get out. They told me to come back in. Me being drunk thought, okay, they're going to leave. Nope. They just closed the shower curtain. So I listened to them having sex while they got it onto the sounds of my puke. Was at a hostel. Woke up really late at night, 2 to 3 AM. And heard some distinctive turkey slapping in the showers. Walked down the aisles of showers to figure out the sound, and only after the fact did I realize it was turkey slapping sounds. And just in this little notch is 3 dudes, one beating a bloke's cheeks red with his D, one jerking off in the corner with the other's cock in his mouth. Walked in on my parents once. It was like 11 PM and I needed my charger. So I walked in and my stepdad was putting his noodle in the ravioli. And I froze. Methodica locked eyes with me to assert his dominance. I walked to the side of the bed, grabbed charger, and left. Never spoken of it. It was my 16th birthday and my mother had made cake. So I decided to call my brother to come downstairs. He didn't respond. Thus I ran upstairs to get him. Without knocking I slammed the door open. I was a bit too excited, and I found his girlfriend with her head between his legs. My brother couldn't stop laughing and his girlfriend's face was completely red from shame. This is how I met my sister-in-law. Walked in on my parents. Literally 9 months later my little ithead of a brother was born. I was 2. Walked in on my parents in missionary position. just jumped on dad's back and yelled something along the lines of "Go horsey, go." Edit, I can't remember this. My mum told me when I was older. Not my story but a friend's. He and his girlfriend were doing the deed and for whatever reason they had ended up in his parents' room. Well, they heard people coming up the stairs. So they hurriedly grabbed all their clothes and hid in the closet. His parents come in and get it on themselves. My buddy and his girlfriend had to sit naked in the closet trying to be as quiet as possible listening to his parents having sex. Doing night checks at work. Old age home. 2 clients going at it. Luckily didn't get have to eyeball some old wrinkled balls or taint. Just closed the door and went to hysterically laugh with my coworker. Honestly, at 87 good on them. Although it caused a bit of a scandal since they were married and not to each other. I walked into my parents' room. Luckily they were under the blanket. My dad rushed to lay back down. I acted like I didn't know what was going on, but I could smell the stank. Ugh. I walked in on my parents. I was maybe 14, but I thought I heard my mom crying, so I went in to check on her. It took me a minute, but I figured out what was going on and pretended to be sleepwalking. I used to be a sleepwalker, so they really didn't think I saw. They told me to go back to bed and I did. Not me but my friend. They were making cookies in our dorm and he remembered he has a half gallon of milk in his room. Milk goes well with cookies, so he goes to get it. Without thinking, he opens the door to his room and at about the halfway point between the door and his mini fridge, he just stops. He looks over and sees his roommate on top of a girl, very obviously having sex. He looks at them in the fridge, which was like 3 feet away, and says just getting the milk. He walks over, grabs the milk out of the fridge and leaves. I've never walked in on anyone, but I've been walked in on by 2 people at a party who thought they were about to have sex in the same room me and my partner were in. They opened the door and one of them said, "Goddess ducking house I swear," and then left. When I was little, my dad and stepmom and I would always go to the beach. We wouldn't go to a hotel, but rent rooms of a house. I always assumed that the woman owning it was part of my family. Fast forward to a morning where I couldn't find my stepmom and started searching the house. Little me opens random door screaming off, "Have you seen my mommy?" I didn't get until later what those 2 other guests were doing, but their faces were so priceless. I still can picture their shocked faces in my head. Edit. Because it wasn't clear that 2 people were other guests. MFW, I can finally answer one of these, but it's really awkward. I was about 7. Woke up early on a Saturday to play Mario Kart with my bro. At that age, we had to get permission to play games. I barged into their room just as my father throws a sheet over my mother. I have never heard of sex at that point. I thought she was just sick. So I waddle up to the sheet covered mound and ask, "Hey mom, can me and bro play games?" She dismisses me with a yes and I leave. Dad shouts a parting shot, "Knock before you enter, son." 2 people having sex walked in on me while I was sleeping. It was at a cottage and I was asleep on the bunk bed. A couple came in and started having sex on the bottom bunk, not realizing I was on top. Had been sleeping on a friend's couch after a party. I was very drunk and had to pee in the middle of the night, and the nearest bathroom was through the room next to me. So I stumbled in on 2 people I didn't know very well. But instead of doing the normal person thing of just leaving, I gave the guy a big ol' gun and finger guns and walked backwards out. Went back to sleep. Woke up 30ish minutes later completely forgetting this happened. Realized, hey, I need to pee, walked in the same room again. Again completely shocked. So I smiled again, gave him a thumbs up and shuffled backwards out. Went to the other bathroom, fell asleep and forgot again. Found out about this story the next morning by the guy, who thankfully thought the situation was funny. Edit. I pieced the story back together from what he said. He more jogged my memory, as all I could remember was really having to pee. TLDR. I'm a very supportive and forgetful drunk. Freshman year of college. My roommate's friend was in our dorm room and I was leaving for work. I was pretty confident they were planning on having sex once I left. Got downstairs, room was on the 4th floor, and realized I had left my work shirt back in the room and went back up to get it. I couldn't have been gone for more than a couple of minutes and regrettably did not knock beforehand. Opened the door to see they had wasted 0 time in getting it on. There was about a 2-second delay where no one said anything. I grabbed my shirt, said have fun, and bolted out of there. Another thing, my roommate had recently come out to me. I was flattered but had only knew him a couple of months at that point, and I think that just made everything a bit more uncomfortable.